Treat your coworkers with respect. Meet deadlines to explicit understandings that every employee knows and is expected to follow. They're in the HR manual. But there are other powerful, unspoken understandings that employees follow, even though they aren't in an HR manual. Here are 2 examples. Don't be vulnerable. I recently spoke to a group of managers at a leadership development conference, and our topic that morning was being present. During the discussion, a man raised his hand, and he shared with the group how he had lost his daughter to breast cancer. He was choked up with tears when he told us he would give anything to turn back the clock and be more present in her life. He hadn't been present not until she got sick. Over and over again, he apologized to that group. "I'm sorry for being so emotional." He looked embarrassed and ashamed. The second unspoken understanding: if you're hurting, don't let it show. It's tradition in our office for mothers to bring their new babies in for everyone to ooh and ah over them. One afternoon, a woman who had been out on maternity leave brought her baby in to meet everyone. I told her how beautiful her baby was. I even held her. And then when she left, I rushed into my office, I shut the door, and I started to sob. I ache inside when I see a baby. I've had 2 miscarriages, and I feel flooded with grief when I see them. We all understand that if we have to cry, we should go outside or into a bathroom stall or behind a shut and locked door to pull ourselves together. And so I've learned to deal with my pain privately so that I don't make other people feel uncomfortable. These are just some of the unspoken understandings we work by. They imply that it's fine to come to work as an employee, but it's shameful and it's awkward to come to work as a human being. I believe we pay a huge price for creating work environments that don't allow for humanity. We take the humanity out of business. We need more humanity in business, not less. And so tonight, I will make the case for bringing humans back to work. Are we connected to each other? Well, you would think so. After all, we instantly connect 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so you might be surprised to learn we're actually disconnected from each other. And the evidence is everywhere. For example, today, it's acceptable to tell someone off in an email. If you want to end a relationship, no need to have a conversation when you can send a text message. Work weeks are filled with working lunches, and now more than ever, people are working alone and in virtual environments. These behaviors are symptoms of disconnection, which can lead to some serious health problems, according to the research by Steve Cole. He found that the lack of social connection can be more detrimental to our overall health than obesity, smoking, or high blood pressure. Matthew Lieberman, in his book, Social: Why Our Brains Are Wired to Connect, says that the importance of social connection is so big that when we feel rejection or other social pain, it registers in our brains as physical pain. But the benefits of social connection, there's so many of them. It's widely believed that it strengthens our immune system and keeps us healthier, and that social connection is the key to productive relationships and successful work environments. I find this research so compelling that at our company, we've begun architecting a program called the Whole Life Academy. The purpose of this program is to reduce our healthcare spending, but our intention is to do that in a very unique way, to develop more whole and more connected employees. Over the next year, it's our intention, for example, to roll out tools or education or resources to help employees understand more about their health and well-being, to be more connected to their friends and families, to love more deeply. And we believe our efforts will be worth it. Now, for a moment, please picture yourself at work. Do you work alone in a virtual environment? Do you work in a real office with real people? If you work alone in a virtual environment, you might need to use your imagination here since your only coworker is potentially Alexa. Now, consider these questions. Are you connected enough to the people around you to know when they need a little help? Are you connected enough to the people around you to ask for a little help when you need it? And third, are you cultivating work environments that allow for strong connection? Don't worry, we're going to take a look at each of these questions. The first, are you connected enough to the people around you to know when they need a little help? So here's a situation that came up for me. One morning, a woman who works on my team was rushing back and forth in front of my office to the restroom. Now, I know from personal experience how miserable this sort of thing can be when it happens at work. And so I made the decision at first to ignore it so I wouldn't embarrass her. After a fifth or sixth trip by, I decided I had two choices. One, I could get the heck out of the way when she went barreling by, or two, I could say something. And so I decided to say something. Now, I'm not a doctor or trained in anything related to digestive issues, but what I do know is that stress can wreak havoc on your body. And so I asked her, "Are you feeling stressed or overwhelmed today?" And she emphatically nodded, yes. So I brought her in an office, I closed the door, I turned off the lights, and I led her through a series of breathing exercises. I put my hands on her shoulders. I breathed with her to calming down. It only took a few minutes out of my day to be present with her. An hour later, she reported feeling great. Her stomach had settled down. Now, can you imagine doing that for someone you work with? If you can't, why not? Is it because you don't have the time, or you don't know how to help? Or is it because you know that touching at work is not okay? As the head of HR, you'd think I'd be the first person to tell you that touching at work is a no-no. Listen, the truth is, it's easy to rationalize why it's okay to ignore a coworker in distress because connecting takes conscious effort. That brings us to the second question. Are you connected enough to the people around you to ask for help when you need it? About a year ago, a man who works for our company told a group of us that his son had been addicted to drugs. Through tears, he was choked up. He told us how he couldn't believe it happened in front of his eyes, how scared he was. And then he went on to share his concern that there were young people in our work family who were similarly addicted. He said, "If you see these signs, call me, I'll help you. We have to help these people." Fast forward to a few months ago, a family member of mine who had been showing signs of drug abuse admitted to being addicted. Do you know who I called late on that Friday night in tears? That guy who told the story. He told me it was okay to be scared. He gave me some good advice. He let me cry. I will never forget the compassion that he showed me, and there are other people in my work family who have done the same, and you can bet that their willingness to connect has made me more loyal to my job. That brings us to the third question. Are you cultivating work environments that allow for strong connections? I believe we have to shift our mindsets if we're going to bring connection into the workplace. Work and life balance, it's no longer a thing. It's all just life. And we have to live it and encourage our coworkers to do the same. Earlier this spring, a man who works on my team asked me if he could leave for a few hours the next day to go to his son's preschool graduation. So I asked him, well, what time is the graduation? And he said, 10:30 in the morning. So I just suggested, why don't you go to the graduation and come to work afterward? And he looked at me like I was sort of insane to suggest that he not come to work for 1 hour before this ceremony. How do we bring humans back to work? Well, it starts by being the kinds of leaders who tell a guy like that to take his kid out for a special breakfast instead of rushing to an office. That's humanity in business. It's a simple shift in our thinking that empowers people to feel whole and feel connected, regardless of whether it's before, during, or after business hours. You bring humanity in business when you ask people how they're doing and you actually listen to what they say. Start asking your colleagues questions that invite them to tell you about their lives outside of work. The more you're listening, the more people are going to tell you. And what you learn will help you coach them to better and better work outcomes. Maybe you find out that a woman loves photography, and so she takes pictures at your next work event. You save money, and she gets recognition. Maybe you find out that a man lost his father to heart disease, and so he creates the company's team for the next American Heart Association's 5K. In the process of building connections, you leverage skills you didn't know existed. You improve your brand and employee loyalty, you increase employees' engagement, and you drive results. Early in 2016, I started a yoga teacher training program. During the first weekend of a 6-weekend program, we were in a yoga session that required us to take some time for a long, quiet meditation, during which we were told to give ourselves loving kindness. Well, I quickly learned I did not know how to be quiet or connected. I also learned that I did not know how to be kind or compassionate to myself. And so I started on the path to becoming a new kind of person. During the journey, I met with a gal on my work team who had been working with me for a few years, normal weekly meeting, and she made a comment about how much more approachable and kinder I was than I used to be. And so I said, why don't you tell me a little bit more about what you mean? And she said, well, you were always so busy, running from here to there on the phone in meetings, being all important, that you were actually never really all that nice. That conversation told me I was on the right path. I needed to bring my work and my life together. Compassion and kindness toward myself and others, letting go of ego, embracing vulnerability, softening, allowing ourselves to feel. These aren't just things that belong on a yoga mat. They belong everywhere, all of the time, regardless of what time of day it is, or where you work, or where you come from, or what kind of work you do. They are the key to being human, and they're what makes us whole. And so I continue on my journey to bring humans back to work. Every day I try to ask myself, what did I do today to help someone else live a more connected, a more full life? And so I'm going to leave you with these 2 questions. Tomorrow morning when you get up and you go to your job, how are you going to connect with someone? How are you going to help bring humans back to work? Thank you.